even just from the tour alone, like I was just blown away by the set and just taking pictures on the set. I mean, I watch this content weekly. You know what I mean? You know, I'm a basketball junkie, so I don't really miss episodes of Inside the NBA or NBA TV, Game Time. Like I watch those shows daily and weekly. So just to go from being on one side of the television screen to being in the actual studio, that was just the first. It just blew me away at first, and then from there on, like working there, I worked with Shaq. I worked with Charles Barkley, Kenny the Jet Smith, Ernie. I mean Grant Hill. I met some of my favorite basketball players in the world. Talked to them, built relationships with them that I still have today.
My time at ESPN was great. I had the opportunity to meet a lot of good people that I consider brothers and sisters there. Today's episode is no different as I bring on my brother, Quincy Young. Quincy and I started about a couple months apart. He was there first. We actually met on the basketball court during a make-do entry-level tournament leading into the season that year, which we would become champions. And then we were going to, become good friends, hanging out at each other's houses, finding a church together, hanging out, going to get some wings because we just needed to get out of the house. Married men understand, sometimes you gotta get out of the house. So, today's episode, we talk about his career. As he left me, about 6 months before I would leave the company, he left as an opportunity at Bleacher Report came. So we talk about that. We talk about the process. And then we talk about his other stops, CNN, sports, MLB, and now USA Today. So, ladies and gentlemen, sit back and learn something. Learn what you need to do as you make your journey your own. Ladies and gentlemen, here's my guest, my brother, Quincy Young. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on this episode of Breaking Through the Glass Ceilings, I am honored to welcome one of my close brothers. When I was at ESPN, when I tell you me and this brother rode together, whether it was in the hollow halls of the basement in Bristol, sometimes going to church, sometimes just going out getting some wings, doing whether it was the World Series or the NBA Finals or whatever, or playing 2K. It still is my brother, the one and only Quincy Young. What's up, man?
Thank you, man. Appreciate the introduction, man. Definitely some good times for real.
Yeah, bro, man. It's funny. I remember when we first met. It was actually in the basketball league that we used to have.
Oh, right. And pros over hoops.
And it was that first time when we did they had the little tournament during the mini summer before the full season, and came on board. We was all on the same team and we won the championship. It's funny because we have that picture, and shout out to Lauren. Now her last name is Nieves, as she's married our good buddy Eddie. That's still her profile picture on Twitter.
That's hilarious, man. That was good times. You had to have something to do out there in Bristol, Connecticut. Play a little bit of basketball, help that make everything a little smoother,
Yeah, man. And, that's when I knew how serious you were about when it came to the game. Me, I was just out there to have fun. But like,
oh, no. If I get on the court, I'm trying to win. That's it right there. I'm trying to win.
Yeah, so I don't know if you remember when we first started that series, we lost the first game, and which we shouldn't have lost. But then the next game, man, you went off and you started like dishing, like you explained to me that for you, once you got everybody else going, that opened the doorway for you to get going and drop your buckets. Like I remember you was just counting your assists, like, all right, come on, all right, your turn.
Get some, because I want to be closing time. I want the ball close. I don't want nobody to say I ball hog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like to mix it up early because when closing time comes, I'm trying to take those big shots. You know what I mean? And you can't do it all by yourself. So
yeah,
try to get everybody going, get everybody a chance, and then take over in the spotlight when it's my turn.
Yeah, but so, obviously you have a career in production. When did you decide like you wanted to go into the journalism and sports field and broadcasting and media?
Honestly, man, I've always had an affinity for sports, and I had dreams of being a pro athlete. That was ultimately my goal growing up. But it wasn't until I got to college that I realized that I could even take the path of a sports journalist. I met someone you probably know, Ron Thomas. He's one of the OGs of the NABJ and the Sports Task Force. He's the head of journalism and sports at Morehouse College, and he basically exposed me to a world that I didn't have any previous exposure to. He's wrote for the San Francisco Chronicle. He was the first beat writer for the USA Today for the NBA, and he just kind of was telling me about his career, and I just thought it was so cool, man. I just thought he was able to do so many things in his experiences, and it inspired me to go down a similar path. And I just kind of stayed under his wing, and it ultimately, when graduation came, that just seemed like the best career choice, and it's been a ride since then, honestly.
How was the journalism program at Morehouse? We hear a lot of about, from people, somebody who doesn't go, we hear about the Morehouse men and stout gentlemen and, engineers, but you being a very, very successful journalist coming from there, how would you say the journalism program was there?
I think it was great, and not to take anything away from the curriculum. Like, the curriculum was great, and I felt like it prepared me for the world that I'm in now in ways that I didn't even realize when I was in it. But in retrospect, I can see like how the curriculum prepared me for what I'm doing. But more importantly for me was just the experience, seeing someone and talking to someone who's done things that I aspire to do. And Ron Thomas just being such a mentor for me and introducing me to people and just opening doors. Literally, my first job in the industry came from a class trip in his class. He took us on a tour of NBA TV and TNT studios. It was supposed to just be a trip for everybody just to get exposure to the production world. At the time, I lived across the street, and I told myself, if I ever get in that building, I'm going to try to get a job. I'm going to try to stick. And everybody had on their jeans and a t-shirt, and I had on a suit and tie with my resumes because I thought I was going on a job interview. And something was able to happen for me in that day, just off the strength of him opening the door for me to be able to get into that building, and then me taking the initiative to say, okay, I'm in this building, how can I maximize the opportunity? And I ended up meeting who ended up being my supervisor that day, and a couple months later he ended up bringing me on for a job. And that's kind of how it all got started. Even then, I didn't know that this was something I would be doing long term. I might have thought it was just a seasonal kind of thing. But just, the more exposure I got to it, the deeper I got into it, I realized that, this is what I wanted to do with my life. And honestly, the journalism program at Morehouse opened that door for me. I would have never had access to that building if not for Ron Thomas taking us on that class tour, you know.
I'm glad you brought that up because when you sit back and look at um, you talk to a lot of the students and they get these opportunities, they just thinking, okay, like you said, they just just come in there to show up, take a look at the place. You already had in your mindset, I'm going to get a job, even though they may not have been actively hiring, but you made a first impression. And I want the people out there listening, especially, it's really a lot of people in college listen to this podcast, so
Mhm.
glad you was able to bring that up, especially when it comes to sports. What was some of your highlights when you was down in Turner?
Oh man. So even just from the tour alone, like, I was just blown away by the set and just taking pictures on the set. I mean, I watch this content weekly. You know what I mean? I'm a basketball junkie, so I don't really miss episodes of Inside the NBA or NBA TV Game Time. Like, I watch those shows daily and weekly. So just to go from being on one side of the television screen to being in the actual studio, that was just the first. It just blew me away at first, and then from there on, like, working there, I worked with Shaq, I worked with Charles Barkley, Kenny the Jet Smith, Ernie, I mean, Grant Hill. I met some of my favorite basketball players in the world, talked to them, built relationships with them that I still have today. Just the whole experience, and then just getting exposure to how the operation works. Like, you see it, you watch it, and you digest it, and you're interested in it, but you don't really know until you sit in that seat, what it takes to prepare that content. You know what I mean? And what goes into it. So I would say that would be the big. Besides the experiences of just meeting people and the relationships, I would just say the experience of just learning how operations happen and everything that goes into it for me.
Any particular day stands out, or any particular project you worked on that was your favorite?
So many, man. Even my first highlight. So my first season, I was covering the Cavaliers because I was brand new. They give the good teams to the more senior people, and the not so good teams, I'll say, to the more junior people who just coming in. So I had the Cavaliers, and this was before LeBron came back. It was just the Kyrie show.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyrie Irving made the highlights so easy to make. I mean, when you talk about just crossovers and they have all kind of replays you can get when you're working at TV. It just made it easy. I was just so Kyrie. All 10 Kyrie buckets in this game is a highlight package. You know what I mean?
Now, was you a little biased? Aren't y'all from the same area?
Yeah, he's from Jersey. Yep, we're from Jersey. But I mean, even then, like the
Mm-hmm.
following season, I had the Timberwolves and Kevin Love, and this when Kevin Love was playing like at an MVP level, like
Yep.
before he got traded, he was really balling, and it just made it, a special season for me. Even though my teams were trash and they weren't making the playoffs, just the entertainment of seeing these guys on a night-to-night basis, cracking jokes with Shaq, cracking jokes with Charles Barkley daily. I mean, it's so many things that I could point to. It's hard for me to pinpoint that right now, Brian, for real. It's
Now,
just so many experiences.
so we're gonna move on to ESPN, but real quick. So with NBA, when you was working, well, I should say Turner, did they give you teams to cover the whole season? You know, like when we was in highlights at ESPN,
Right.
they would
Yeah. So
go there.
I was a logger, right?
Mm-hmm.
My title was a logger at NBA TV and TNT. And at that time, I thought I made it. I might as well have been somebody's executive producer in my head. But it was the most entry-level job you can have. I was just logging highlights and helping to put together, highlight packages for NBA.com and for TNT and NBA TV. So I was assigned a team, and I would have to do all of their home games. I'd have to come in for all of their home games and pretty much log the top 10 to 15 plays from that game and tell the game story at the same time, like any milestones or records that are broken, things of that nature. I would have to incorporate that into my highlights. My job to know those things. So that's basically was the breakdown of my position at NBA TV and TNT.
Oh wow, so, yeah, that's definitely a lot. Now I gotta ask you this though: did it get boring watching? I mean, I know you love basketball,
For
but
me, it was
yeah,
like a dream come true. I'm like,
okay,
they're paying me to watch basketball that I would watch for free. You know
right.
what I mean? Like that. I think that's how I ended up sticking when I went on my tour. Then when I was talking to who ended up being my supervisor, I was like, I would do this for free. You don't have to pay me. I'll just come here. Y'all let me chill. I'll clean up if you want me to clean it. Whatever you need me to do, just let me come around and chill with Shaq and Chuck, and just let me see. I just want to learn. Can I just be a fly on the wall? And he loved that, and that's how I ended up getting the job. For me, it never got old, man.
Mhm.
I would, like I said, I would have done it for free.
Yeah. Now, one of the things, you played basketball in high school, right?
Yeah, I did.
How would you say that was helpful to your career? Because obviously you're going to look at the game much more different than last time I played organized ball, besides those ESPN days, was the rec days in middle school. So how would playing, basketball at a high level? Because in high school you're getting covered by the newspaper and stuff like that. I remember
Right.
you told me about a time when you was made the headlines.
The Burlington County Times. Yeah, I
Yeah.
had my glory days in basketball. Honestly, the biggest connection is just like perspective. When
Mhm.
you play these games, and every NBA player played high school basketball just about. Every NBA player played AAU basketball just about. So just knowing the things that are incorporated into the game, knowing the game, knowing different play sets, just knowing the game all the way around, like from even mentalities, like how you might feel after a certain play, like, oh, he just ran the floor. I know he's gassed. That's why his defense is lagging, type of thing. And recognizing moves, like, oh, he just hit him with the in and out. You know what I mean? Like as soon as I see something, I can identify it just because that's the culture that I grew up around. That's what I grew up, the content I grew up consuming. So just being connected to the game, I feel like, and just knowing the game definitely helps a lot. But I don't think you have to play to have that connection either. It just has to be something that you're interested in.
Yeah. Definitely. So now, your time there's up. You move on up to Connecticut, and you started about a month or two before I did. How did the ESPN opportunity come about for you?
Okay, so graduation is here. Like I'm like a month away from graduation. And I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do. And I was actually on my way to law school. I had taken my LSATs. I had done a pre-law prep program with St. John's, like an internship, and I was accepted into Ohio State. I was gonna go to Ohio State for law school, but I went to Ron Thomas again. I went to Ron Thomas's office and told him where I stood. Like um, I'm I'm about to go to law school. I've been having fun doing this, but they don't have a full-time opportunity for me here. I don't see the growth potential. What can I do? And he advised me to basically write up a cover letter describing my experience at NBA TV and why I was passionate about it and why I wanted to continue working in this field. And I did that, and then we dropped it onto the NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists listserv. So this listserv is an email blast for the sports task force that goes to every member of the sports task force. So that includes, HR people, production directors, editor in chiefs. I mean, just about everybody on the list gets this email. So I wrote kind of a passionate letter talking about, how I enjoyed my experience and I'm looking for more opportunities if they're out there. And 2 days later, after putting that cover letter onto the site, onto the listserv, I got an email from uh, Tracy. I don't want to say everybody's name, but I got an email from the director of the Content Associates program at ESPN. And she was like, I was blown away by your letter. I'd like to talk to you about a production assistant opportunity here in Bristol, Connecticut. I was like, what? Where do I sign?
Yep.
So that's how that kind of came about. Just basically trying to use my experience that I had in college to apply to my next step in my professional career. And I wrote a nice cover letter, got it into the right hands of the right people, and got a response. It's kind of
Wow.
like a shot in the dark, but it worked.
So I actually met Tracy at NABJ the next month. She was the person doing the recruiting, and
Mm-hmm.
she asked me like how would I feel about living in Connecticut. I was like, well, I'm from Baltimore and this, that, and other. And she told me to connect with our good buddy Aaron Hilton. And Aaron was
Mm-hmm.
like, we talked, and you know how you just meet people, like kind of like you and I, we just clicked immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like one of those type of things. And so he was like very inspirational for me. What was your do you remember your interview process? Do you remember
Like it was yesterday.
you talk about that? Because I always like hear
Yeah.
everybody's different experiences when they go through that interview process to get the ESPN, because we all have our
Yeah.
stories.
It's so funny, man. Like you look at this stuff in retrospect, and it's like if it was like a dream at the time, and you look at it like that, it's kind of silly now. This was my first time being flown out for a job interview, and I felt so big time. They had me staying at the Holiday Inn, and I had a car rented. It was
Yep.
like I thought I was so big time at the time. Like it's my first corporate experience like that. And I met with, I think about over the course of 2 days, I met with about, I want to say like 8 people. And they basically just try to test my sports knowledge first and then, try to gauge my technical skills, which I already had because I had already been exposed to the production landscape at NBA TV. So it was like I had a leg up on a lot of the stuff they were asking me because I'd worked in similar situations already. Like it kind of a lot of the stuff I had already learned applied. So I met with about 8 people, and they basically just tried to test my sports knowledge, test my knowledge of highlights, gauge like my editing skills. If I didn't really have much at that time, but they groomed me, and I think I remember one part of it. I remember was they were just trying to just gauge my personality, and he asked me like, uh, who do I think I could beat? I told him I was talking a lot of trash about basketball. I feel like I was like, all these people talking about basketball up here, I'll beat anybody in this building at basketball. I I was feeling myself at the time. I'm young, 20-something years old, fresh out of college. Like, I'm like, nobody's going to beat me in basketball. I know y'all got the gym over there. Let's go to the gym. You can bring anybody you want. to the court and I'll dust them off right here. And if I
Oh,
win, I need a
wow.
job. So he was like, Jalen Rose works in this building, right? And I
Uh-oh.
was like, Jalen Rose, that's not Fab Five Jalen Rose. That's Jalen Rose now. Like, he's washed now. At that time, it's my time right now. I was talking crazy, and they really gravitated to my personality. Like I gave them a lot of energy, in everything that I did because I was really excited, man. You go from not having a job, you're trying to figure out what you're gonna do to get an offer from the worldwide leader and what you want to do. It's like it was mind blowing to me.
One of the things I like is that you touched on the importance of still being yourself. Sure, you needed the job, but you also couldn't get lost in trying to be a corporate stiff, trying to go
For
along to
sure.
get along. You
For sure,
know.
because I think you end up setting yourself up when you paint yourself in a box like that. If they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to be comfortable with you being yourself, then you don't need to be there because ultimately yourself is gonna come out. You can't fake the funk forever. You're gonna have to be yourself at some point. So if they can't accept you for yourself, then you probably don't need to be there. I like to show, off my first impression, what you're gonna get. What you see is what you get from me. I don't want to have to fake it because I'm only gonna be able to fake it for so long.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on, you get the job. What's your first assignment in the rotation as a PA?
My first assignment, I think I was in highlights. I think I was in the highlights. And it was cool. It was some late nights. That's the only downside of it was some late nights. And it was a learning curve as well too. Just figuring out like the style of how they do things, and certain talent members want their scripts a certain way, and you know and then once you get that down, once you understand like the procedural things and how everything is supposed to go, then creativity can come into play. Um, and then I was able to get more creative with my stuff because the procedural stuff just came so easy after a while. I was able to kind of but highlights was my first stop
Yeah, do you remember your first highlight, or I should say, first highlight that aired?
that aired. I think it was a Kyrie Irving highlight again. uh Oh no, you know what it was? It was a WNBA highlight. It was Elena Deladon hit a game winner. She had a step back game winner, and the it wasn't supposed to make the show, but it was on ESPN, and she hit a game winner on ESPN before SportsCenter came on. So I'm like kind of maybe half-assing through my package, not even thinking it's gonna make the show, and then she hits the game winner, and everybody's like, "Oh, we need that Elena Deladon game winner, and we need it pronto." I was like, "Oh." I didn't rough cut anything. I just had to come with the time codes and roll with the punches. But it taught me a valuable lesson to
Mm-hmm.
be ready, because it can always come your way, even if it looks like it's not.
Well, what's so funny is the reason why I'm laughing is I don't know if you remember this, but I remember when I was in highlights. It was around the same time you was, and there was a time. This was towards the end of your highlights part, and something happened, and I was talking to my HP, and your HP was like somebody else, but they used to all sit in the same
Pod.
yeah, that's what it's called, the pod,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden you came over and you was like, man, I got this game such as I don't think nobody gonna want it, but I still got a plan for it. And it just reminded me when you said that, when you was just like, because I remember that day and I'm still learning, but I was like, I remember one time I was like, disease, I didn't know what disease meant. And then it was like, oh yeah, that means it's not going on the show. I was
Yeah,
like,
you're not gonna make the show.
I was like, oh, okay, cool. It was a hockey game, because I want to say like the first 3 or 4 I had actually was on the show. And everybody's like, oh man, you lucky because that's usually it's not that way. But then, stuff started happening. I started getting more hockey games, and you know how much I love baseball, but highlights almost made me hate baseball because
Highlights can make you hate anything because you got to do so many different versions of it, and they're so particular about it, and it's like you don't even want to enjoy it by the time you get done watching that play 30,000 times, the same exact play.
mm-hmm.
And it may be a sport that you're not even that much interested in because all the good stuff is going to go to the more experienced producers and editors. You know what I mean? So if you're
Yeah.
coming in there fresh, you're going to get some bottom of the barrel game, and you're going to have to do a whack highlight on it all night.
What was your and where'd you go after highlights?
After highlights, I went to I want to say Colin's show.
Yeah.
What was the
Oh,
name of his show? Colin Cowherd's football show.
Right. Now, what was now it's funny because I remember you was there. You used to come stay cracking jokes during that time. But can you just talk about the experience of working with him?
He was an interesting guy because I learned that his personality was that he was taking advantage of this outrage kind of culture. He would say a lot of things that he may not even fully believe, or but in order to spark outrage, in order to get reaction from people, that seemed to be like his mojo. And then like I hated him watching him on TV, like
Me too.
as a
Mhm.
fan. But when I worked on his show, he was so cool. Like he's such a nice guy. Like none of his whole persona is, but I mean he realized that people love that. There's he's one of those guys that's polarizing. Like either you love him or you hate him. And working on his show, I got to understand that that was the whole point. That's what he was trying to do. You know.
I feel like to me, because I couldn't stand him either, being a huge wrestling fan, he used to always like just rag on wrestling fans. And I was like, dude, and Kahar, our buddy Kahar is a huge wrestling fan too. So he was like, bro, I know you don't like him, but man, look at this. He just said something funny. I said, man, I ain't trying to hear it. But when he went over to Fox, it seemed like he's just straight to the point. He's still him, but it's not as over the top. So I can stand him now.
Yeah.
And then
That's so funny because he does that to for you. Like
exactly.
he knows that the true wrestling fan are gonna be mad that he's trolling wrestling, so he stirs that pot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then he had the nerve to have wrestlers on his show.
He grinds gears. He's a gear grinder. That's what he does. I like it though, man. And me, like, in building myself up in this media landscape, I learned that sometimes you got to do that. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to put out some content that does that, just to get different reactions. You
Yeah.
can't do everything that everybody else is doing. A lot of people are saying the same thing. Sometimes you need to go against the grain for some engagement.
Now, when you was after that, did you go to? Is that when they, I hate to say it this way, but threw you in the basement after you had broke your leg?
Yeah. I was on that show. Then that happened to me, and then I was on. I don't even know what they called that anymore. But I was burning the midnight oil on some late nights, watching some. What's that called again? Where you cut the commercials out.
You were scrubbing.
Scrubbing. I was scrubbing. Yeah, I was in the basement scrubbing, and then that's when I had to reevaluate where I was going with my career.
So it's funny because you and Randall Newsom was both scrubbing at one point, and now Randall's on TV in Indianapolis, and
Okay.
you doing your thing in USA Today. So it's just amazing how, like, to me, I was like, y'all got talent down here. And like, to me, like, why not rotate that, but you got talent just sitting here and could be doing so much more, but yet.
For sure. I mean, there's two sides of the coin, right? Like, I think one, like, I had to pay my dues, and the same for Randall. Like, we had to pay our dues, and we're stronger for it, right? Like, we realize how much we want this. The fact that we're willing to do that in order for this wouldn't be where I'm at right now wouldn't be as sweet if I didn't have those times. If I couldn't reflect back on those times, like, remember when you was doing that? Now look at you.
Yeah.
But the second part of it is like, yeah, what you were just describing, like, you can't let these companies dictate your talent level. To one company you might be insufficient. You might not be the guy for them. But another company's trash is another company's treasure. Like, I didn't feel valued at ESPN at that time, but my next job at Bleacher Report, I was thrusted back into the spotlight. Like, I was, I felt like a star player. You know what I mean? So, and it all happened over the course. 1 month I'm downstairs scrubbing, and the next month I'm in New York at Bleacher Report talking to DJ Drama and, LeBron. You know what I mean? Like,
what was so interesting about that was I go back to, so, we paint the timeline. That August, NABJ is in Boston. And you get a chance to, have the interview with them. And, you had the patience to, wait it out because they wanted to wait for football season to get over with. But if you remember that November, you and your family, my family, and a few of our other ESPN friends went to church that November. by the time you started it, you left first, then a few other people left, and I left. By the time August got here, all of us who was in church that Tuesday night before Thanksgiving had left. But you talk about the process, when you knew it was time to leave ESPN and make that move to Bleacher Report.
It was scary, man, because it's kind of like a roller coaster, right? Like first you're coming out of school and you don't know what you're gonna do. Then you get this great opportunity to go out to Bristol, Connecticut and work at ESPN, and you're doing it. Everything is going great. Life tragedy happens. I had a horrible car accident, broke my leg, and it left me in a position where I'm not as productive as I could be at work. I'm not able to go out on the road, so they want to put me in a position that leaves me stationary that I can still be productive for them, even though it's kind of stunts my growth in a way, right? So I'm just downstairs. All this has happened to me, and I'm downstairs in the basement thinking like, okay, Quincy, you're more than this now. I know you had to take some time off for a broken leg, but your leg's not broken now. You're fully functional. There's so much you could be doing. You're watching all this content. You watch SportsCenter every night, and you're like, man, I would have done this like this. I would have wish I was on highlights. I would change X, Y, and Z. You're watching all different kind of features that your friends are coming back from off the road producing. Like, oh, we just came from the NBA Finals, and we did this content and that content. And you're like, man, you're this close to producing this kind of content, but you're so far away. Like you're watching all these people around you do great things, and you feel like you have great things inside of you too, but you're not given the opportunity to bring that to light. And at that point, I started thinking to myself, okay, the writing may be on the wall. You may not be able to bounce back from, taking that time off for a broken leg at this company. You may need to reshuffle the deck because, I'm a father, just like you, Brian, and I felt like, it would be irresponsible of me to not grow and to not do everything I can for me and my family. So at the time, Bleacher Report wasn't even, it was kind of risky at the time in a lot of ways because Bleacher Report wasn't even on the radar when when I made that move, honestly. Like they were still, the acquisition with Turner had just happened and they weren't really, nobody knew if they were going to sink or swim. But for me, it just seemed like a blank canvas to me. ESPN, that picture has already been painted. Everybody knows Stephen A. Smith built that company and Trey Wingo and, all the talented people that they've had in place for years. It just felt kind of stale. It didn't seem like there was space for me to, blossom into to maximize my potential or to maximize my talent. And that's when I knew it was time to go. I just felt like, I wasn't gonna. I thought to myself, I wasn't gonna ever get the opportunity to maximize everything that I could be here. So in order for me to do that, I needed to move on.
Yeah, and for you also got to go home.
For sure, New York and Connecticut. Oh my God, it's like heaven and hell.
Wow. I was gonna say night and day, but you painted an accurate picture.
Just polar opposites. That's all I really mean. Polar opposites. Bristol wasn't hell. I mean, I had good times in Connecticut. My son was born in Connecticut. It's always gonna have a special place in my heart. But,
likewise, same with my daughter.
So it's always gonna be special for me. But it just, New York. Come on, that's not even a comparison.
Now, when you what was some of the cool things you got to do there? Because like I said, I know like people, and when you was leaving, people was like, "Oh, Quincy's going to Bleacher Report," because like we said, it hadn't.
It wasn't really popping.
Yeah. So like, and now you see quite a few of our former colleagues are there. So, but like, you kind
of, in a way, they've kind of overtaken ESPN as it relates to social media and how people consume content. Like I think they're right up there with ESPN right now as far as sports coverage goes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So what were some of the cool things you got to do there?
So initially I was on the NBA team. So that was one of the other draws that drew me there, was like, you will just be working strictly on NBA content. And I was like, man, yes, I'd rather do that. I don't want to do no more soccer. I don't want to do no cricket. I want to do NBA content. So I was on the NBA team, and we worked with like senior NBA writers Howard Beck and Rick Bucher on everything trending NBA. So we would do videos every day inside the studio with Howard Beck and Rick Bucher talking about whatever the trending topic was in the NBA. The acquisition returner provided highlights. So Bleacher Report had just got access to NBA highlights and footage. So I started doing like NBA mixtapes, like some of the best dunks of the year or the best crossovers of the year, or I just started doing all kind of different mixtapes,
Oh,
just
I
playing with that.
remember. I was watching
Yeah,
your footage at ESPN.
yeah. And I was getting notes from people from ESPN like that was like, "Oh, we see what y'all doing over there. I like what you're doing. Keep up the good work, man." They let one go.
Mhm.
People was really, and even now, like you see, because ESPN is so grandfatherish, like it's so like old. People have been doing the same thing for years. And when the trend is shifting, it's hard for them to align themselves with the changing of the times, the changing of the production landscape. Like we were doing top tens, and if it wasn't a countdown, they didn't want it.
Yep.
At Bleacher Report, I made it a point like we don't need to count down everything. Everything doesn't need to be so organized. Let's just have some fun. Let's make a compilation of the best stuff and give it some personality with music and give it some little features that keep people engaged besides the number countdown thing. And that was my main goal. I got respect for Top 10 Glenn. Shout out to Top 10 Glenn. He really trained me up. He was my person that trained me when I first got there. And I always respected and loved what he did. But I just saw that there was an empty space to be doing something else that's kind of similar. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Now,
And
when
that's
you was
what I
there,
tried to bring to Bleacher Report.
one of the things that ESPN they did was they put production assistants in a bubble. They told us you're not going to get to do for the most part, this isn't going to be an on-air position. At Bleacher Report, didn't you get to do some on-air stuff there?
Yeah, I did. And that was and I understand, like, again, there's two sides of the coin. Like at ESPN, everybody comes there thinking they're gonna be Stephen A. Smith or Trey Wingo or some, Adam Schefter. Everybody comes there with that dream almost because that's what they associate with ESPN. So for them to be realistic and for them to have productivity, they tried to stifle that for a lot of people just so they didn't have an influx of people doing that. You know what I
Right.
mean? We need production
Absolutely.
people more than we need. There's so many more production people than there are talent. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So I understood why they were doing that at the time. But yeah, Bleacher Report, because it was such a blank canvas and they didn't really have any defined voice or defined talent members, they gave me an opportunity to just go out, shoot stuff, edit stuff on my own, be talent, I did so many different things, create graphics, like just wear so many different hats just because it was such a new space.
Yeah.
And I got to shoot things. I think we did a Facebook Live when Facebook Live was big with Adam Lefko, who's a major talent person now. Me and him played Madden together. I beat him in Madden on Facebook Live. Um, I did mainly a lot of Facebook Live stuff when Facebook Live was in. We started doing like Facebook Live shows, and I was able to be a talent member on those. And even that's growing, even still now at ESPN. Guys that I know at Bleacher Report, came in as production assistants are now talent members.
Now, when you do that with that transition, do they give you like different protocol? Do they tell you like, hey, we need you to like go to makeup or stuff, or they just give you a camera and give you freedom?
Well, it depends on how polished they want the product to be. At some point early on in the process, they kind of just were like, go. Oh,
Hmm.
let's toss Quincy in there and see how he does. And even let you figure out if that's what you want to do or not. Because some people think that's what they want to do until they get
Hmm.
tossed out there, and then it's like, you know what I mean? So they just let me kind of rock out at first, and then when things started to get more polished, like when we started becoming a weekly show on Facebook Live, then I had a little bit more access to wardrobe and makeup and things like that.
Okay. They give you a
Mhm.
clothing allowance, or they just
No, they had wardrobe. They had a
excuse me.
wardrobe woman who basically came in and
Oh,
laced everybody up.
oh, nice.
Hmm.
Now you then so you was there for about 2 years, right?
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
you went on to Atlanta to CNN. And one of the things I remember from your Snapchat stories was seeing the opening of the new stadium. But can you talk about what it was like to be in Atlanta and working at CNN?
It was cool, man. I was actually laid off at Bleacher Report along with about 100 other people.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was already in the Turner network from working at NBA TV and then Bleacher Report and TNT, they kind of just looked out for me and transferred me down to Atlanta. And it was cool. I was working in the sports department down there at CNN, working with Talent Coy Wire, who's a former Falcons player. Hines Ward was there at the time too as well. I worked with Pam Oliver's husband. His name's Alvin. He was a solid dude, man. He put me onto a lot of different things, taught me a lot of different stuff. It was a short time. I was only there for about a year, but I got to go to the opening of the new Georgia Dome. I got to go to Clemson University and talk to Dabo Sweeney in his office. I shot in his office with Coy, did a one-on-one interview with him. We went to University of Georgia with Hines Ward, who's a former University of Georgia player, and shot some stuff there. It was a lot of like sports stuff for the non-sports fan, like
Mm-hmm.
informing like grandmothers and moms about what's going on in the sports world, kind of thing. Um, so it was cool. It had its hiccups. The main part is just being down in Atlanta, away from my family for that year, which is why I had to kind of circle back and get back up here and get to work.
Yeah. Now you ended up in baseball. How did
Right,
this was
right.
was that like one of those things where, hey, this is open, let me go for this opportunity?
Yeah, exactly. I was just trying to find any opportunity to get back up top, to
Mm-hmm.
get back to New York and get back to my son. And I got a random email from Major League Baseball, and I didn't watch a lick of baseball. Brian, you know me, I didn't know nothing about baseball at the time.
I know.
But I went on the interview, flew up for the interview, talked to them for a while, and we actually had the person who hired me at NBA TV and gave me my first job was an associate of the person who ended up hiring me at Major League Baseball. They knew each other, and we kind of had a common friend, so we had that conversation. And for me, he basically told me, like, if you can cut video, you're going to be fine in this role. Like, it doesn't matter if you know baseball or not. You can listen. You know sports well enough. You'll be all right.
Mm-hmm.
And he was right. You know what I mean? It was a little shaky at first just because I wasn't confident. But after the first month, 2 weeks or so, it was all smooth sailing from there.
Did you have to like tap in back to the brain of your highlight resources, those that when we said to cut those baseball games?
Oh, for sure. That definitely helped me out. I knew more than I thought I knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just from having to do it already.
Yeah, and we can't
Mm-hmm.
forget, I mean, the first time we went to Yankee Stadium,
Oh, yeah.
you
I
know,
still got that picture of my son at Yankee Stadium for his first baseball game.
yeah,
That was a good time, man. That was a good time.
it was, and that was like, it was my son's first time going as well. First time going to, that was his second baseball game, his first time in Yankee Stadium. And, I mean, I was like, okay, this is real cool. That was one of my things, like when I moved to Connecticut, I wanted to go to all the stadiums. I didn't get a chance to go to the Mets Stadium, but I definitely got a chance to go to the Red Sox and the Yankees. Now,
Mm-hmm.
after that, that's when I'm assuming the opportunity for USA Today came and you just jumped on it, or?
For sure. For sure. Uh, Basically, yeah, the MLB opportunity was seasonal.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the season was over, I was looking for new opportunities. And I went to NABJ again. What NABJ was that in Detroit.
See,
And
you went to the ones I didn't go to. So, I mean, obviously, we saw each other in D.C. because I only went to the party because it was down the street.
yeah.
But I
But
didn't
even
go
in
to.
Boston, I only went to the parties. I didn't go to the one in Boston. I only went to the party.
Yeah, and I kicked myself in the head for not going because I remember when y'all said y'all was going, and you was like, "Yo, just come on up." Cash said, "Yo, just come on up." I was like, "Nah," and I was thinking I don't need a job, and I should have went.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing too. Like
Mm-hmm.
even somebody had mentioned to me, you know how you get these little comments at NABJ sometimes, like you need to shave your beard if you're. He was like, yeah, you should probably shave your beard. It looks more professional. And I was thinking to myself, like, I already got a job. Like, I don't need to shave my beard. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, but what if I want to hire you? I'm like, well, if my beard is gonna stop you from hiring me, then I don't want to work for you. You know what I'm saying? So I was thinking to myself, but yeah, ended up going to the one in Detroit, and I
Mm-hmm.
met the vice president of video for USA Today, in Detroit, and we really had a great conversation. just talking about like some of my experiences and how I feel like the sports landscape is changing and how I want to contribute to it. And he he read me basically. He vibed with me and gave me an opportunity to come work for him here in New York
Now,
in
how's
the
that
sports
experience
department.
been? Because I see you've been doing a lot of on-air stuff too there, right?
Yeah, it's great, man. I mean, I got so much flexibility. Um, I went to the Lakers game when they played the Knicks here. Got a press credential. Was in the locker room with LeBron. Was did Vince Carter story talking about his last season. That was an on-air story that I was able to produce and talk to some of his teammates about when they came to the Garden, when the Hawks came to MSG. I interviewed all the rookies at the Rookie Symposium, NBA rookies at the Rookie Symposium, and asked them like their nicknames.
Yeah, I
And I
remember
did like
that.
a nicknames mashup style video. Just a lot of great content, a lot of fun, and honestly, a lot of stuff that I would engage in even if I wasn't working. You know.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is you've been able to throughout your whole career, you've done things you always done it your way, but you've been able to find stuff that you would do, as you said earlier in the show, that you would do for free. And you found a way to maximize and get paid for it.
I'm passionate about this, man. I really do love this, and I think the biggest thing I want young people to take away from this conversation is that like you can work in these spaces. These opportunities are out here for you to maximize, to have. And I really didn't know that until later on in my journey. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
If I would have been pursuing this in high school, I might be even further ahead than I am now. But to each his own, and everybody has their own path. But I want kids to know that you can work in sports without being LeBron. Everybody's not going to be LeBron. Everybody's not going to make it to the league. But you can still engage in this content. You can still enjoy the moments. You can still work in it and get paid for it. Um, you just have to pursue these opportunities and know that they're out there for you.
Yeah, man, that's definitely amazing. Um, before we go, the title of the show is called Breaking Through the Glass Ceiling. When would you say in your career was that moment you broke through the glass ceiling and you realized like I was born to do this?
I think it was that transition between ESPN and Bleacher Report and seeing how it all played out. Like, if somebody, like, to me at the time, ESPN is a giant and Bleacher Report is just coming up and they're not even well known. They're not really significant yet. And taking that leap of faith to say, you know what, I'm going to leave this conglomerate to go over here and do something for myself. It's one thing to be in a big pond and be a small fish, but it's another thing to be a big fish in a smaller pond. I just felt like I was confident enough in myself, and I learned enough from ESPN. I learned enough from NBA TV that I could survive in this landscape if I had an opportunity. And I felt like Bleacher Report was that opportunity. And when I got there, I realized it was. Even the landscape of that company, when I first got there, it was a .com first company. It was all about going to BleacherReport.com or going to the TeamStream app. Those were the two primary platforms that they operated on. And I think based off content that I created and some of my coworkers created at the time, they made a complete company shift. And now they're a social media first company because of some of the traffic that we were able to generate on social media. They started realizing like, hey, a bulk of more of our traffic is coming from social media than anywhere else, and for me, being able to be a part of that and seeing that transition gave me the confidence to know like, yo, you can navigate this space. They don't really, these companies, they have all this money, they have all this power, but they don't know what's going on. You do. You know what I mean? You can change the landscape of a company. You can make a difference no matter where you go. And that's when I really started to believe in my skills. And the more time goes along, the more opportunities I'm able to have, the more experiences I'm able to have. It's like it's hard to second guess yourself.
That's correct, man. Before we let you go, let the people know where they can find you
For
and
sure,
find your
man. I'm
content.
I'm on Twitter, QBBallin3, QBBALLIN3. Instagram, same thing, QBBallin3. As well as on LinkedIn for the young professionals that want to build. Like I'm all about building connecting people with the right people or pointing them in the right direction and answering any questions that you guys have, feel free to reach out to me.
You heard what he said, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only Quincy Young Q, man. I really appreciate you taking
I
the time.
appreciate you too, man. Brian, bless up, man. Bless up you and the family, and keep doing all the great work, man. I'm loving your content.
Thanks, man. I definitely appreciate that.
Respect, man. Take it easy.
You too. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you really enjoyed that episode, that conversation, and I hope it's a lot that you could take from Q as he discussed his career and how he did things his way. Next week, I'm sticking with ESPN. I bring on a good friend of mine. As you may have heard on the show, as described that last time I went to church where all my friends was there. Well, next week's guest was there with Quincy and I as well, and that is my good friend Erica Marmolejo, as she will come on and talk about her career. Erica is now works in player engagement with the Chicago Bears, but before she got there, she worked at ESPN also. So we talk about her career, going from sports production to working for a team, and so much more. So folks, make sure you are tuned in each and every week of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings, and remember, do not let anybody set up a glass ceiling that you can't break through. So long, everybody. This podcast was recorded and edited by B Waters Productions. The music by Hypno Beats. Make sure you follow him at Hypno_Beats with a Z on Instagram.